Excellent, good. Okay, welcome everybody to the September 12th, 2017 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. We'll ask if our town administrator would please read the agenda and note any changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. And I have one of those items that just came to me coming into the room, and it's to appoint a temporary assistant treasurer. And we could do that under the town administrator report. And we can explain then why. The other amendment is removing consideration of CM&D director contract because the candidate withdrew from the process.
Okay.
We'll start first with public comment and then update on dangerous dog hearing held on 7/13/17. And it will be Ray McSorley of Animal Behavior Associates and Mr. Braden Haney, owner of Blitz the Dog. Tax classification hearing with Wendy Alassi, the assessor. Then a consideration of one-day liquor license with Norfolk Hunt Club. Then consideration of special fall town meeting discussion and consideration of special election discussion. And then under board and committee business, Fire Chief Aaron Pinning, Libby Yon appointment to the Council on Aging for a term to expire 6/15/2020, and Rick Novak appointment to Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire 6/15/2020, an appointment for Doug Brody for Veterans Officer, Veterans Grave Officer, and Burial Agent with a term to expire April 15th, 2018, and an appointment for Brad Van Brunt of Traffic Safety with a term to expire June 15th, 2020. Then an update from Whitewater on the town hall well.
Good.
And then under routine business, town administrator report, selectmen reports, the minutes from July 13th, 2017. And then set the next meeting date. And there is an agricultural preservation restriction with George Fisk. We'll be here to discuss that. And then move to go into executive session and not return to open session for MGL Chapter 38, Section 21(3) to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town, and the chair so declares with respect to the following matter: Murchison versus ZBA, Town of Sherborn et al. Versus the Gray Road LLC et al., the Gray Road LLC versus Sherborn ZBA, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus ZBA, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Conservation Commission, and MGL Chapter 30A, Section... Pull that second piece off. I don't know what that's for. And the board will not return to open session.
Okay. I had two comments. One was the CM&D director discussion item is off, not because of any particular candidate, but because we don't have a quorum to discuss that tonight. And then the other comment was the agenda refers to agricultural perseveration, which we may perseverate about agriculture, but it really is preservation on this at this point in time. But other than that, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as modified?
I kind of like preservation, but I'll take yours.
But that could be every item on this agenda.
That's true. Move to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor? All right, great, good, we got something done. Frank Jenkins, public comment. Thanks, Frank.
Good evening. SOS has had continued through the summer with meetings, and one of the topics that has come up is suggestion that we reconsider establishing another governance committee to look back at the Collins report, the DOR report. We've taken action on several items there. There was a governance committee. Kitty Sturgis was chair of that with Chuck and George Shea, that made some progress in taking steps to consider and maybe enact changes as recommended by those two reports. There's still work to be done. So we were recommending that maybe the Board of Selectmen might consider establishing another governance committee. to go back, review those reports, pick up any pieces that have been overlooked or missing, and try to advance some recommendations to try to improve the way we're governed.
Great, thanks, Frank. And I know you and I had a brief discussion about this, and that was something I said we could discuss tonight when we talk about consideration of a fall town meeting.
Yep.
And thanks for coming in and introducing the topic. It's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, next item, and it's after 6:10. The update on the dangerous dog hearing held on July 13. Is Mr. McSorley here?
He was outside.
He's outside. Great. Hello, Mr. McSorley. Everyone else. Makes me feel like summer all over again to see you all here. Mr. McSorley, you're up if you want to be. I think this is mostly to hear a report from you and then see how we're going to resolve or if any further action needs to be taken on the dog hearing that we held on July 13 concerning Blitz. So go ahead.
My battery just went
Oh,
dead
okay.
in my other ear, so I'm down to one ear, and the one that works doesn't work really well.
We'll talk
So
very
if you-
clearly.
If you don't mind yelling, I can probably hear you.
Sure, we'll do that.
Or I can move up.
Okay, you're welcome to move up too if that's more comfortable for you.
I'll just talk normal.
You'll quiet down a little, right? Okay, great, thank you. So we had you here in July, and you gave us a report about what you thought should be done regarding Blitz, and we issued a decision in which the dog owner was going to work with you to see about training the dog, and can you tell us how that's worked
Yep,
out?
we finished up this past Thursday. I had 9 sessions with Braden and Blitz. The first 4 were without any other dogs, just working on getting Blitz to heal well and in general be better with Braden. And then the last 5, we had interaction with various dogs. In Natick, around the Common, and also out at Buddy Dog. I went out the last 2 times, went out there, and I know them out there, so we were able to line up some shelter dogs that aren't good with other dogs. And the last Thursday I was out there with Braden and Blitz, and they brought out a little 12-pound white dog, and she's really not good around dogs. So Donna had her on a lead, and I said, I'll go to the other end of the parking lot. And so I couldn't believe it. I mean, she just walked the dog right up to Blitz. I told Braden, I said, well, just walk down, walk past her. And they were this close together, and Blitz didn't do anything. And then she let the little dog follow Blitz around, probably that far away from him. He's very, very good. And then she told me afterwards, I couldn't hear, but the little dog was growling at him all the time. So I have to tell you, I've been very impressed with Braden. He's been extremely cooperative. He's put in a lot of time. He's put in a lot of effort with Blitz, and it shows. I think he skipped a couple of follow-up training sessions when I wasn't there, but in general, I have to say, I think he did a my hat's off to him. He did very well. He was always, we had early sessions, 9 o'clock in the morning. He was always up, ready to go, had the dog ready to go, so I have no complaints at all from that scorer. So they're ready for the test whenever
Okay,
you set it up.
okay. I don't know what test that would be. Chuck, you've got some,
No, it's just got something for,
oh, it's a
No,
battery?
wrong size.
Oh,
Of course.
helpful.
so now you can't hear either? So
Sorry, it's Daddy the way. He just changed his up.
I need the big one. You don't have a big one, Dave.
And I don't.
Okay.
How often did you meet, we had the hearing on July 13th and the order issued on the 15th. It sounds like you had 9 meetings at least. Were you meeting more than once a week with Braden and?
Well, first 2 weeks, I met with him Tuesday and Thursday. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th week, I met with him once a week. And then the 6th week, then we met on Tuesday and Thursday again. So we had total of 9 sessions.
Wow. And you said at our last hearing that you found Blitz to be anxious, very anxious in your presence. Did that change over the 9 or 10 visits with him?
Yeah, Blitz?
Yeah.
He's actually, he and I have a very good relationship right now. He's very happy to see me when I show up.
Sergeant Teston, do you have anything to add? Have you been involved in this at all? Okay. Braden, do you have anything to say or add to this? So we've got an order that had certain conditions on it, one of which was to retain Mr. McSorley, and it looks like that's been satisfied, so thank you. There was another that required the report, which is being satisfied tonight, and it says, in light of this report, the board may make such additional orders as it deems necessary to protect the public. So it looks like we would be within our right to either modify this, this order, or leave the order in place for a certain additional period of time and then modify it or consider it at a later point in time if things continue to go well. And I guess I would look for any suggestions from anybody on how we might want to handle this.
I'm interested in Mr. McSorley's opinion. The part of the order was that whenever Blitz was not at home at 187 Maple Street, he'd be on a leash and at all times in the control of a responsible person capable of handling him. Do you see any reason to modify that order?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Do you think there'll ever be a
I-
time where we don't need to require that?
I actually had Braden healing Blitz off the leash up in Natick, up in the town common up there, for short times, maybe 3 or 4 minutes at a time, then put him back on, and but he's improving in that area. Okay? He's not 100% yet. But with time, if Braden continues to work with him the way I've shown him, then I would say at some point, it could have him in places off the leash.
And so what are the recommended follow-up work that is recommended, that you recommended?
I think they can probably work together for a while. And then perhaps in a month have me check in and see how that's going?
So they'd work on their own for a month, and then you would follow up with
But
them?
I think if you so, if that's the way you would prefer it, that's fine with me.
I mean, you know.
If it's fine with them.
Yeah, and we'll ask them. I mean, I think
But that's-
from our standpoint, you know, it's unusual, I think, to have us in a continuing monitoring environment, but on the other hand, this is a kind of a special case. We've got a guy who wants to keep his dog. It sounds like he's done all the right things for the past 6 weeks, and, you know, if that's amenable to you, we would do that. We would take, I think we would take that recommendation that you continue to work with the dog, and in a month, and you don't necessarily have to be here, but we would have a report, a letter or something from Mr. McSorley just advising whether that work is going well. Based on the order here, there was a 6-week period where Blitz had to be confined to the property. Do you think we need to keep that, or is it safe for Braden to take Blitz for a walk on a leash or take him in a car for a walk?
What was that?
Well, we had confined the dog to the property unless you were with them or they were training. And I guess I'm wondering if we still need to have that. It sounds like he's made some progress walking on a leash.
He should be fine.
Okay. So I guess I would take, you know, I guess take people's views on whether we can at least, in the interim, take this second condition out, and he would still have to be on a leash off the property.
I think the second condition is no longer applicable. It refers to the 6-week training period.
That's right.
So I think the items 1, 2, and 3 of that order, we're dealing with number 3 now, listening to Mr. McSorley's recommendations, but that would just leave basically items 4 and 5 in place, which I think makes sense.
And have you been successful getting the insurance that was on here, the $50,000 liability insurance for the dog?
Talked to my insurance company, and they said that the liability that I currently have is more than sufficient.
So you have an umbrella policy that would cover that? Okay. Hey, can you give some evidence to Diane? Just send her whatever demonstrates that, or if you have it with you, give it to her. Okay, so basically, we would be down to condition number 5 and another condition that says that we would take a report in a month from Mr. McSorley as to what, if any, further steps are needed as far as the training goes?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Makes sense to me, Sean?
Yeah. Does that make sense to you? You go out and observe them once and in a month or so, and,
I mean, we can always reopen the order at that time if there's an issue or,
right.
you know, okay. Does anybody else want to be heard on this? I know we'd had a hearing before. Okay, all right. So can we have a motion on what we're doing here?
Great. I would move to add to the order of July 15th, a 6th paragraph that within a month, Mr. McSorley would evaluate Blitz's progress and report to us. I don't think it has to be in person. I think an email is perfectly sufficient, but just have a 1-month follow-up. It sounds like an awful lot of,
So it'd be after a month rather than within a month?
yeah, after a month.
At least a month from now?
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second, and a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're stating the 6th, are we deeming that he's satisfied the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
I think so,
Paragraph.
depending on what the CGL, the coverage looks like. I don't know, I haven't seen the insurance.
I think we would still want 4 to stay in there because it requires the insurance be maintained.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're satisfying 1, 2, and 3.
I think 1, 2, and 3 are no longer applicable, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think those 3 have all been satisfied.
Right.
And thank you for doing that.
Right.
It's really great that things are working through the way we all hoped it would. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Second, did you? Yes.
I did.
Okay, all in favor of that revision? Great, thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay.
You put your battery back in, are you good? Really?
I carry extras.
Okay. Let's see. Wendy, you are up. And thank you for coming in.
No, I'm good, thanks. So, Mike, there's the article that should have been provided to you to open up the meeting.
Okay, so where is that? Is that this?
It was in the front of your packet, Michael, the legal post.
I got this thing.
I have a copy if you want.
It's that, it is the highlighted sheet. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's the legal posting I had in front
You
of
talking about the?
All right, but it's not in my package, so where is it, do you think?
Here, I'll give it to you. I have a copy.
Chuck stole it? Oh, okay, thanks, Chuck. Appreciate that.
You have it?
No.
No, this is the report, Chuck. This is just a report. I got nothing. I got like one, I didn't even get the report, but okay, it's all right. It's that kind of a need-to-know thing.
Report was up here when you got it.
Oh, okay. I think Chuck stole mine then, probably. All right, great. Tax classification legal notice. The Sherborn Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, September 12, 2017, at 6:20 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room of Town Hall, 19 Washington Street, Sherborn, Mass. The central issue to be discussed during the tax classification hearing is whether all 5 classes of property, residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal, shall be taxed at the same rate or at different rates for fiscal year 2018. Interested taxpayers are urged to attend the hearing. Written and oral statements from interested taxpayers will be accepted and taken into consideration at the hearing by the Sherborn Board of Assessors. So that's the notice. It's past time, so we're good, and the floor is yours, Wendy. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we should start the meeting off. I had provided an informational guideline release to David and Diane. We have not received preliminary certification, but we can hold the meeting.
Okay.
So what you can't do is vote. So we'd have to, once we get certification, we come back, it'll be probably a 5 or 10-minute meeting on the voting of the split tax rate and the residential exemption.
Yep.
Okay, so I
Wendy.
have,
But you can vote to continue the hearing.
but you,
So I
yes, so
have-
you'll need to vote to
Yeah, we'll need
continue.
that. So Chuck, can you pass over that motion? We're going to need that eventually. Okay, good. So yeah, and you've got a nice report here, which I did find. Thank you, Diane.
Yeah.
It was clipped to my package, like you said.
Oh,
And-
so I didn't take it from you?
No, you took it from me, and then I found it back clipped
That
to my
was when he tried
package.
to vote
Thank
you
you.
off the board.
Is that right? Go
And
ahead.
I did hear good news from my Department of Revenue rep. He emailed me this afternoon, and he told me that everything's going great. They're reviewing all of the data, and hold tight. So I'm thinking maybe in a couple of days, I'll get that, so.
So they're just a little slower than they sometimes have been. Is that the idea?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything,
Yeah.
you know, the obvious. And, yes, they have been slow. I think only nine communities at this point have been approved,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Paul wanted to be first. We didn't get that right.
Okay.
Right. So, do you want to summarize what we should be looking at in this report or anything?
So, for everybody else, the purpose of the hearing is the public classification hearing. And I'll just read from it. For the Board of Selectmen to determine the allocation of the local property tax to be borne by the 4 classes of real property and Class 5 personal property for fiscal 2018. In deciding the allocation, the Selectmen must adopt a residential factor. The residential factor is used to determine the percentage of the tax levy that is applied to each class of real and personal property. The Board of Assessors applies the percentages to the individual property classes, and it is my responsibility or the assessor's responsibility to provide you relevant information so you can make an educated decision. So here just shows that the 5 different classes of property, and it shows the 2018 values versus the 2017 value. And this year was a revaluation year. Because I had to be out, I ended up in a semi-emergency situation, And so I had Patriot Property come in and help with updating the tables. Patriot Property came in, they've worked for us since 1997. They've inspected the town, they've done our revals in the past. So that was good that we could contract them. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little more money, but that's what had to be done. So they worked with myself, the board, my DOR rep, and used the data that I had already provided to them, and came up with some of this, not all of it. So they changed the revaluation year. Usually it's every 3 years. They changed it, and it's going to be every 5 years now, except what's going to happen is they're going to be asking us for more every year. So, you know, it's just going to be a little more labor-intensive yearly than it is every 3, you know, because they changed it. So the new growth number, I'm sure you've noticed it, it's $310,500. Again, it's preliminary. The 12.6 million came from residential, and the 2.5 came from, that all came from personal property. It says commercial, industrial, and personal property, but that's all the personal property. I don't think we will see this new growth number again for a long time. Just, you know, I mean, it was mix of the over 55 community. It was several new homes being built or not being finished last year and being completed this year, some additions, so that's what makes that up.
Can we explore that?
Sure.
That was what first of all, the new growth is nice. It's the highest it's been in the last 8 years and
Right.
3 times what it was last year. There's also some nice real estate numbers in there.
Yes.
Houses are on the market about a month less this
Less,
year.
yeah.
And real estate prices are up about 9%. That's all good news. But
Right.
it looks like the bulk of the increase was in Class 5 personal property. Because my assumption was it was going to be Abbey Road and other new construction, but it looks like it's primarily, there's a $2.3 million increase in personal property in Class 5.
Right,
idea?
but, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, just any idea where that came from?
So the 12,652 all came from residential. The 2,523 growth came from NSTAR Electric and NSTAR Gas, DBA of Eversource. That is centrally valued, and we are basically dictated the values, and that's all run through the Department of Revenue. And then some of the other personal property is just people buying new equipment or replacing old equipment. So, but the bulk did come from residential at the 12,652,000. And so the overall increase in value for the major class code single families was about 6.7. That's made up of land increasing. A lot of the land on North Main and South Main increased about $10,000 based on data. And Patriot Property uses the national building costs and Marshall and Swift. That's what we, as assessors, use. And so some of, you know, the building costs have gone up and values have gone up based on sales. So it's a kind of a combination of everything. You will notice that the tax rate did go down. Again, I'm saying preliminary, from $20.46 to $19.30. That being said, as values go up, the tax rate goes down. I mean, that's just the math. And another factor in that was the $300,000 in growth. And this year, and I don't know if Sharon could explain a little bit more, The excess levy capacity was about $830,000, as usually it's around 300,000. So I think that's what also brought it down. I don't know if you have anything to add about what caused.
Yeah, I mean, the big bump was the new growth.
Yeah,
That was-
that's
that added
300,000,
108.
right.
That changed I mean,
Right.
originally, we were thinking about 206,000, now it's up to 800. So the big change was the new growth went from 310 to 125.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the initial model, the excluded interest from the school wasn't included.
Oh,
So
right.
that's the big change.
Okay, okay.
Do you
Yeah.
want to explain that, somebody, George, or Sharon, or Wendy, or somebody?
Would you speak closer to the mic?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, so when they're calculating the levy limit, there's a debt exclusion, and when we originally calculated it, it's excluded from the levy limit. When we originally calculated it, we did not have that exempt piece included, so that was 444,551. So that had a positive impact on the exclusion, so that brought us up. So our maximum levy, compared to our actual levy came down by that 441,
Okay.
because the debt was excluded. Probably not explaining that very well. Does that make sense?
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Um,
The rest of the amount that we're under the levy limit is because we haven't been taking the full limit.
We planned on being 200,000 below when
Right.
we budgeted and at the town meeting when we did the budget for the year. So this is being 800 something that's even
That's
better. I mean,
amazing,
that's a
yeah.
reduction. If we didn't have the
Right.
reval, we would have still seen a reduction in tax rate because of this.
Right.
So on top of the reval, bringing
Yeah.
it down,
Right.
And that's
It's
probably a
It's a
one-off, right?
combination, I
Yeah.
think, of everything.
Because it's a substantial reduction in the tax rate. I mean, last year it
This
was,
will be the third year in a row we've had a reduction in the tax rate, but it's been much smaller.
yeah, this is almost a 5% reduction
Yeah,
from
yeah.
20.46 to
Yeah.
19.30. I mean, that's,
Significant.
Yeah,
5%'s real money.
And from
Yeah.
advisory standpoint, one thing we've talked about a lot is to try to get the tax rate under $20 a thousand. And I think real estate marketing wise, that's a significant number from what we've discussed with real estate agents and the like, that being below 20 is really gonna help valuations in this town because it's kind of a threshold.
yeah.
Just keep in mind that not every property, just because the tax rate drops, everybody's
Right,
tax
there,
bill.
Yeah.
can
right,
still
the
go up.
tax rate increases, it's just a balance. The taxes are going up, and that's, I think, the reality in any, I mean, I had, I think, an $800 or $900 increase in my town in a year, so the tax rate is 1930, but again, the values go up, the tax rate goes down, so on page 5, this just goes over the tax levy information and essentially how it's calculated. So you start with the FY17 levy limit, and then you add in the Proposition 2.5 and the new growth. Then if you get to the total FY18, that's before debt exclusion and any overrides, which we don't have any overrides. You add the debt exclusion, and you come up with the maximum permitted levy. And because we have the unused levy capacity, and we have the property tax levy, it's $24,096,000, and with the levy capacity, excess levy capacity of 838. So they're all good numbers. Does anybody have any questions about that, or, no?
No.
Okay. On page number 6, we have just information on the tax rate and the residential factor. And I don't think Sherborn has ever had a split tax rate. In my opinion, it doesn't necessarily make sense. It puts a burden on the little commercial properties that we have and really doesn't give much respite to the residents. So the residential factor here is, your decision to adopt a percentage to shift. And below, it just gives you an analysis of surrounding towns. And out of all of our surrounding towns, we have one community that splits its tax rate, which it makes sense, is Framingham, because there's such a high volume of commercial properties. And then section C, it just states that historically Sherborn has always maintained a single tax rate. Shifting the tax onto the commercial, industrial, and personal properties would just create a tax burden for those properties, while the residential properties would only benefit from a small savings. So below, I have some tax rate scenarios. The total taxable valuation in Sherborn is comprised of 95% residential and 95.5% residential and 4.5% commercial, industrial, and personal property. The overall scenario is the commercial industrial properties share $1.1 million of the tax levy. Last year's share was $1,090,500. And then it shows with a 10% shift, it shows that the 1.1 million would increase to a little over 1.2 million. With a 25% shift, it would increase it to almost 1.4 million. And with a 50% shift, it would increase it to 1.6 million. I have here some individual scenarios. I did notice, and I apologize, at the top, I have the average home in Sherborn is $803,000 right now. And with a tax rate of $19.30, the residential tax bill will be $15,498, the average, and commercial will be $15,498. I noticed in section F, under year 2018 at the bottom of the page, that shouldn't be 1502, it should be 15,498. So I just wanted to let you know that. So back up to the top of the page, we have, if we did a 10% shift in the tax rate over to commercial, it would save residents $68, and it would add $1,500 to the commercial property owner's tax bill.
For somebody with the same value as the
For
average
somebody with the same
residence.
value, yeah. The 25% shift would save the residents $181, and for someone with the same value of commercial, their tax bill would increase by $4,000. With a 50% shift, there'd be a $383 savings for the resident and an $8,000 increase for commercial property owners. So if you look below with the historical data, this will give you, it just gives you a snapshot for each year, how much tax dollars the commercial base, the small commercial base that we have, lends to the tax levy. And it increases very slightly each year. And there was a slight increase this year as well to the 1.1 million.
Okay, great.
Okay. Then we're here on section F, and that just gives a history of the average assessed value. It's from 2012 through 2018. You'll see how they've been increasing each year. And then you can just take a look and see how the taxes for that year. So it's recommended, as it is every year, by myself and my board, who couldn't be here tonight, that we recommend to keep everything the same, keep the tax rate a single rate. Ultimately, it's your decision.
Is there any public comment? Does anybody have any questions for Wendy or comments? This is a public hearing.
I would say keep it the same. You know, I think that most of the commercial, the little bit of commercial we have, sometimes do struggle in town. And I think that if you changed it and added, I mean, you just added another expense that the little bit of commercial properties have would be under another burden.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
When you had a real quick question.
Sure.
When you look at the surrounding towns, you know, Ashland, Dover, Holliston, Medfield, Millis, Natick, and Sherborn all have single rate. Those all make sense with the possible exception of Natick, which has a substantial commercial. Any idea why? I would have expected Framingham and Natick to be the two dual rate towns.
Yep. I live in Natick, and I was part of a
Running for selectman.
small group of people wondering the same thing. And Natick is made up of a lot of small businesses,
Yeah,
as well as
the mall money.
the mall.
Yeah.
And we're doing okay, and the businesses are thriving, and they're trying to bring more into downtown. Therefore, they're sticking with the single rate. Now, I have my own opinions because I live there, but, you know, I mean, it is, I really don't, it makes sense because we want to support local, and there is a lot of local businesses there, so. On the last page, and then I think we'll be done, I just
Yeah.
wanted to give you just a little snapshot that I found interesting for the Town of Sherborn real estate market data that I got from MLS, which is a multiple listings site that we actually have a license with. And so in 2017, the current market, as we speak, there have been 52 arm's length sales since January 1st of 2017. The average list price of these homes are $892,000, and the average sales price is $871,000. And the average time on the market is 3 months. Compared to 2016, there were 92 arm's length sales in the calendar year 2016, and the average list price was $836,000, and the average sale price was $803,000, and the average time on the market was 4 months. As we speak, there's 36 homes for sale in Sherborn. I can't guarantee that's a exact, but that's from what the information that I found. So it just gives you an idea of what the market is doing. Property values are increasing. And again, as far as the properties in 2017, the average time in the market is 3 months. That could just be because we haven't had a full calendar year. So that may change. I don't know if that really indicates that they're selling faster per se, but.
Thanks for all that info. So
Okay.
we're going to take a motion to, I guess I can read this. I move that due to this hearing being held before the Department of Revenue certification is received, the board should defer voting to allocate the tax levy or adopt any other options under property tax classifications until a later meeting to be held after receipt of the certifications.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Colleen. And all in favor? I vote 3-0. I advise the public that the votes will be taken at a later meeting. Information regarding the date, time, and place and agenda for the later meeting will be posted on the town's website at www.sherburnma.org, and follow the link from the homepage for tax classification hearing -continued. there is no need for republishing the continuance of the hearing in a newspaper.
Perfect.
Thank you. Excellent. Well done.
Mr. Chairman, we
Yeah.
should call a special meeting just to approve this so that we, the treasurer or the tax collector can process the tax bills prior to the October 1st.
Oh, I don't know. I think we're gonna probably have a meeting in fairly short order anyway. You said this was gonna be done in the next week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the mercy
I
of.
mean, I think if we needed to, we would just come in and
Yeah.
call a
Yeah.
special meeting for it.
And as far as the tax bills not going out on time, I do not foresee that happening. So,
There's somebody who's worried about it, though, so I think.
no,
we gotta
and
do-
every right, but we have till September 30th
Yeah.
to get them out.
I think we'll
so,
probably,
Yeah, so we should be okay.
hopefully we'll be okay, but that's, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we will. We'll work together and we'll get it done. All right, well,
And
thank you.
Wendy,
Yeah, hey,
for,
thanks for
Thank-
coming in, making
thank
the
you.
extra effort and putting this good information together.
Okay, great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Wendy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes.
Would you just reiterate for the public that because the tax rate drops, does not mean the tax bill is going up?
Okay, so our tax collector is afraid of angry mobs showing up when your tax bill comes out. And she has just asked me to reiterate that just because the tax rate is projected to go down if the Revenue Department accepts our calculations, that doesn't mean that an individual's tax bill will necessarily go down, because it could be that your tax assessment, your assessed value of your property went up, and even at the lower rate, your bill is higher or the same.
And that's what's supposed to happen in a reclass year, you would expect.
Yeah,
that.
right. And David, our town administrator, is pointing out that it's a reclassification year, so you would expect that that's the kind of thing that
Was
would
that-
happen.
direct enough and stern enough?
It's okay.
I have a recording of the desk.
Very good. Okay, so 7 o'clock, well, we were going to consider fall town meeting discussion. We should probably skip over that, do the Norfolk Hunt Club, and then 7:15 is when we were doing the appointments, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's a scheduled item? Are we supposed to wait for that?
No, they're ready to go.
Move them out of order, though.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because there's
Have
a,
errands early, but
well, I'm wondering if you, do we not want to do errands early because he's waiting on some people?
We should go ahead and bring him, yeah. Yeah, that would be
But we
great.
should do it early?
We should do it, yeah.
Yeah?
you should not do it early.
Should
What if-
not?
What if there's people coming to watch it? It's a Sherborn.
Your
They could
call.
be still at their house.
Your call. He's waiting out there.
He and his family are waiting, it looks
Yeah.
like, so.
Well, yeah, there's a whole group of people, but they might,
All right, well, they're not
Yeah.
pounding on the door, so we'll wait.
but the others,
Yeah, we can do those, but let's do the Norfolk
I
Hunt
mean,
Club.
Libby might have a group. though.
Consideration of a one-day liquor license for the Norfolk Hunt Club. Annual luncheon at the community center. Approximately 100 guests come at different times during the hours of 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Zaftig's Delicatessen has been hired to do the catering and supply bartending service. It is for sale of beer and wine only. We have an application. The application has approval of police department, fire department, and building commissioner.
Liability insurance is all
It's in order?
in order?
Okay.
I would move to approve the one-day pouring license for the Norfolk Hunt Club.
Okay. We have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? All in favor? Aye, excellent, okay. So that's approved. Do we have something to sign here? Jeannie?
Right there in front of you.
It's in this thing? Okay, great. There's only 3 lines on this license for signature, so.
Check.
It's perfect. There you go. All right. We can do some appointments. Oh, actually, we don't have a quorum to vote on one of the appointments here, unfortunately. Do we?
I'm not sure I need to recuse myself for this unpaid position, so
That's up to you, Chuck.
in the interest of
Okay.
moving it along, I
All
won't
right, so we
recuse
have
myself.
nominations for appointments of Libby Yan for the Council on Aging for a term to expire June 15, 2020. Rick Novak, Zoning Board of Appeals, to expire 6/15/2020. Doug Brody, Veterans Officer, Veterans Grave Officer, and Burial Agent for a term to expire April 15 of 2018. and Brad Van Brunt, traffic safety, for a term to expire June 15 of 2020. Do we have any discussion on that? Any comments on that? Thanks to everybody for volunteering. These are all people who have been longtime town volunteers, and it's greatly appreciated that they've come back and re-enlisted. Mr. Lifferton.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just noting, in the past, the burial agent has been the town clerk. Is this a recent change?
I don't know. I am responding to
It's
this
Veterans Burial
proposal. It's Veterans Burial Agent.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a veterans burial
Yeah.
agent. It's not burial, okay, well, thank
Yeah,
you for the,
that
thank you for the
should be on the agenda as Veterans.
Yeah, it's on the motion. It's on the.
Great, perfect. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up on that. Okay. Great. So do we have a
I'll
second
move
on
to-
that, or move to approve?
Did you? then
I guess
I'll second.
I nominated. You
All
can
right, I'll
move.
move to approve.
Chuck can second it.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? All right, everybody's appointed. Thank you.
And I would commend the board to look at Mr. Novak's listing of his qualifications.
Is that right?
It's, one of them is that he's willing to do it.
Did he put that?
Another one is that he has a pulse. A third one is that he has a
high capacity to
high
absorb it.
capacity to absorb abuse. So, thank you, Mr. Novak.
Those are just his major qualities.
Those are the major. There were minor that were a little more substantive, but
It's good. He'd be the chief comedy officer, too, I think.
that's right.
All right, so we need to set a meeting date. It's going to be hard to do without Paul's calendar. David, do you know Paul's calendar?
Just Friday nights.
No? Okay. Well, I think we probably should try to get something on for the end of, for like the 21st of September. Is that the next Thursday?
I'm thinking the tax collector would like that.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, we may luck out. We may have a decision from revenue before then, and then we'd be able to jump right on it. And we've got plenty of other things we could take care of too next week.
That works for me.
Work for you, Sean?
We need more than 7 days in order to.
Oh, that's right.
Full hearing.
The poll hearing for the library project, that's right.
Yeah, but they could get in.
Well, it's,
It's going to be a relocation
from
of
the
the polls
public.
for
Well,
the
that can
library
be-
project, so we need 7 days' notice on that.
yeah, but that's, I mean, we can still have a hearing next Thursday. Okay. Good? Good with that? Okay, so next meeting would be Thursday, September 21 at 6 PM.
So you know that is Yom Kippur. Right.
I may,
Which day?
Thursday, the 21st.
Oh, it is?
Starts the night of the 20th.
what, I missed that.
Okay.
Just.
Not sure if that,
I was
Hits
just
anybody
informed my
on the
son's
board?
having surgery that day.
but we'll, do you not want to do that day?
Yeah, I might not.
Okay.
That may not be a good idea. Can anyone do Wednesday?
I can do Wednesday.
I could do Wednesday the 20th, but that sounds like it might be even worse.
That's even worse than the 21st, right?
From a Rosh Hashanah standpoint, it's worse. And Nancy's shaking her head here. She really wants to get those tax bills out. Yeah, we don't know.
Maybe we should hold on. Why don't we do the 21st?
I would hold on to the 21st.
Let's hold on to the 21st.
Yep.
Okay, that's great.
I'm not actually performing my son's surgery, so hopefully.
Lucky for your son. All right, good. And I think have we stalled long enough, David? Can we start this thing a few minutes early or not?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Does somebody want to go get Aaron and crew? And do we have a, what's our
No.
instructions on this, David?
With the pinning, his wife will be here to.
And you'll
pin him.
kind of walk through this?
Yeah, I mean, usually they're more the expert on what needs to be done.
You have the reserved seating, the family reserved seating here in the front row.
Front row.
Well, whoever set that up didn't grab enough seats.
Yeah, can we maybe move some more seats up? If anybody's got further seats.
So I first want to say that I haven't pinned a fire chief.
Dave, tuck right into the mic.
Just want to say I haven't pinned a fire chief for a while. We have some fire people here. Aaron officially started with us July 1st. He hit the ground running. He's been great to work with so far. A great addition to the department, a great addition to the town. Apparently the relocation of the family went smoothly, and his wife Julie would be the person that actually does the pinning of him as the fire chief. Other than that, it's just it's great to be working with him, and he's brought so many things forward to work on that we'll be coming back at some point with a list of goals, and the selectmen will approve those goals, and their short-term and long-term goals. And other than that, I think Aaron should say a few words.
Yeah, that'd be great, and introduce your family and say what you wish to say.
So I'm going to use the microphone because I've been accused of being a low talker by the personnel here as well as my wife. So, but I'm very pleased to be here. I'm excited. I was excited. I was able to hit the ground running. I've had great support from the personnel here and from leadership in the town. It's been great to work with Mr. Williams and Diane and everybody. It's been really good. So I'm excited about the future and excited to start the new chapter with the Sherborn Fire Department, and things are rolling. And like I told a lot of the personnel, I said I'm not going to make sweeping changes immediately, but changes are coming, and we're working slowly towards pushing things in a direction that we need to go. So I'm very excited about it, and you've got a great group here. The nucleus and the group that's here that is dedicated to serving this town and this community is phenomenal, and they're great to work with. And we're all very lucky. I'm very lucky to inherit such a dedicated bunch, so I'm excited about that. So tonight I have all of my children. So I have Elijah, who is 13, and my daughter Sienna, who's 15, and then my daughter Trinity, who is 11, and my son Billy, who is 7, and then my wife Julie, who is awesome, and she's 25.
Well done.
It's great.
Chief, this may be a stupid question, but do you have the pin with you?
She's got it. I told her it's her turn to be stressed out and nervous about having something and not losing it.
Don't worry, the real chief has it.
I have 2, actually. I was hoping I'd get one.
We'll be having next week in the morning a meet and greet for all the staff and boards and committees. An announcement for that.
It's great.
I'll introduce his wife, Aaron's wife, Julie, and she is doing pinning that on him.
We got the first aid kit ready, guys?
Yes.
Easy.
So I just want to remind everyone that Aaron has been the fire chief since July 1st. And it's just been a
Despite the
scheduling detail.
Now he has the badge, though, David.
The actual badge on there.
It's great. Thanks for coming in.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome. Thanks to everybody else for all you do for the town and for supporting our new chief.
And all your sacrifices as a family for.
And I apologize about the pets thing. It'll work out for the open house. Gotta work out the kinks, so, yeah. Still in the works.
That's all right. It was good to see you. Thanks.
Thanks,
See ya.
Aaron.
All right, great. All right, so Whitewater's not coming until 7:40, which means we can talk about a special fall town meeting and a special election consideration. And what are the dates, David, that you had tentatively thought about?
It was brought to me from John Higley, who had done a timeline for working on a special town meeting date. And in his timeline, he was recommending November 14th.
Okay.
I just want to check that. Yeah, so that was the date. So we just tried to get people to hold that date. So the timeline that he is working with the planning board to bring something forward right now
Okay.
revolves around that date.
Okay.
David, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, it is hard to hear.
David, is your mic on?
Yes.
I'm having trouble hearing.
So November
Can you go back
14th.
for a minute?
Yeah.
Explain why we're talking about a fall town meeting? I'm not sure everyone knows. I'm not sure I
Well,
fully understand.
well, a couple things. One is we've been asked by the planning board to schedule a fall town meeting potentially for a zoning change and potentially for the master plan adoption or endorsement, whatever the correct term is.
So if you want us to use that date, then we would go ahead and put together
Give me the date
normal
again, David.
timeline. November 14th.
Tuesday.
And I know Mr. Selectman Durensis had some concerns about one of the dates. That wasn't the date he was concerned about?
It is the date he's concerned about.
So what are you saying, David?
That night doesn't work for Paul Durensis, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So
What's Plan B?
we just wanted to, you could set another night, but right now, we're not asking for you to vote to have
On a
it
date.
that night. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not setting a date tonight. We don't need to set a date tonight. We have a little while to
No.
set a date.
So based
Okay.
on John's timeline, we, reserved the schoolroom and everything because we have to reserve so much in advance. But we didn't reserve a bunch of dates. If there's another date around that time, you should probably discuss it with the full board here.
The following Tuesday is a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so that's, the 21st does not
No.
commend itself. Would the 7th be the alternative? I mean,
That's election day. Well, not that we have an election here anyway. Right.
yeah.
Well, maybe that's a halfway decent day.
We can, I
But the
can send
7th
something
doesn't,
around
the
for
7th doesn't work
7th.
for the timeline? Is that,
Well, I'll let him know tomorrow that adjust his timeline for the 7th, and we'll see if the room's available. If
well,
it's-
we would be accelerating everything by a week is what
Right,
I'm
right.
saying, which might be harder on them
Right.
than pushing it back to like the end of November or something if we needed to, so. But like you said, we can't really figure this out without a full board, and maybe we should have John in to explain the schedule when that happens.
Right. There would be a formal request coming from the planning board to have a special town meeting, and for what purpose? And at that point, we would have you vote the dates on the open and close of the warrant and the
Yeah.
actual date of the town meeting.
Okay. And Carol, you had a point to make?
Well, it's actually, David, I wish you would move your microphone.
Yeah, David, it's really hard to hear you, and I don't know what's going on. Did you catch the low talking thing, or?
Yeah. I've been meeting with Aaron.
I think you might need to push it a little closer.
I'm not talking right now.
You're not talking right now?
You don't want us to.
Carol's talking. Carol has the mic.
So I'm curious why you're fixated on a Tuesday night for a special.
I have never fixated on a Tuesday night. Carol, I don't know if David's fixated.
All the dates you mentioned have been Tuesdays.
Well,
when I called the school, the 15th and the 16th were completely booked at school. So that week, that Wednesday and Thursday was booked.
Is there a reason not to do a Tuesday? Are we?
Well, I just wanted to say that with a Tuesday special, it means I have to staff my office from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a Saturday
Okay.
for registration.
Oh, because the new laws say you have to be able to register.
It's, no,
Okay.
because a special town meeting has a 10-day registration.
Okay, all right.
So I would love to avoid having to spend that money.
Yeah, we probably would too. All right, well, that's something to bear in mind too. That's another thing to throw in. It's going to end up that there's going to be only one day in a 2-hour window that works for all the different constraints on this, but we got to figure out what that day is.
And it is. Mr.
Kitty.
Chairman, do we have to have it at Lindquist Commons? Could we do Pine Hill School?
That was gonna be my question.
I think it's going to depend on how many people think are going to show up at the special, but we've certainly done those other special meetings at at Pine Hill before. Yes, sir.
Do we have to have a special town meeting?
Well, we've been asked to by the planning board is what we've been asked, so.
Can't we kick this over to the spring and
Well, there may be good reasons not to do that, but I think the planning board will come in and make that point, make that case, make that point.
I think they should make their argument really severely. Do we really need a special town meeting?
Yeah, I think, they will, but I can tell you, I think there's some benefit in having a special town meeting that focuses on development-type issues and planning-type issues for the town of Sherborn. We've had a lot of meetings where that's discussed, but we haven't had a lot of meetings where that's discussed to any kind of decision point, and my understanding is that's what this special town meeting would be.
How about a meeting to present to the town what they've got up their sleeve? Because it seems like we go to town meeting, the planning board comes up with these things, and you have to do a lot of backpedaling and reading and checking up on what they're proposing. And they propose a whole bunch of stuff every single year. And nobody, you have to do a lot of homework to figure out what they're doing. Maybe they should turn around and put out a meeting, not have a special town meeting.
We're gonna have a public hearing at least 3 weeks before, where they're gonna have to come and present to us what they're planning on presenting to the town meeting. Because advisory has to vote on whether we're supporting it or not. So,
you
and
need
we
to
have to have a public hearing
You have to have a meeting before they can.
before town meeting. So
Before
come to our
the
public
special-
hearing,
Before the special town meeting.
yes.
If they hash it all out, they hash it all out
No
there.
matter what.
Well, it's a voting session, and it's also to serve the purpose that you're talking about.
Right, exactly.
So the
So then
people that are
public
interested can show up and learn about what the proposal is.
And does not the planning board also have to hold a public hearing?
Themselves.
Yes.
Planning board will have a public
Yeah.
hearing.
They have their own public hearing.
Yeah,
Right.
But we will have already committed to the special town meeting prior to that.
yes.
And the special town meeting dates are November? So we've got 8 weeks to.
That's the whole schedule thing that John's going to come in here and tell us about.
I'm back to, do we really need a special town meeting? Let's inform everyone, let's put all the meetings together. By the time you get into the budget process, we'll be in April. We can have a regular town meeting and everybody ought to be informed.
Kitty?
Mr. Chairman, I personally have been in favor of having zoning articles at a special town meeting. I think it enables us to really zero in on zoning and keep the budgets and other warrant articles out of the discussion, and it doesn't go so late.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
I completely agree with Kitty on that point, which leads me to my question. Will you allow other articles from other boards on the warrant?
Depends on what those articles are.
You have to open the warrant first.
Yeah, the warrant would be open, and things that got signatures would have to go on the warrant, and other things could go on the warrant. And we've done this before. I think we had a special a couple of years ago, and 4 or 5 things got on, and it was for the purpose of doing 1 or 2 of those, and everything else kind of leaped on. Okay, so we've decided nothing except to kick this can down the road to next week.
We're going to have Joan in to
Well, Well, let's put that
explain
on
this
for next
timeline.
I already have
Thursday if we
Sure.
can. Yeah, that'd be good.
And we really can't waste more than a week or two
On that, yeah.
before we
For the schedule, yeah.
move on something.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay.
Perhaps we can revisit Kitty's question, which we, as we're scheduling, we should be asking Pine Hill for their schedule.
Yep.
Because if we all sit here and can't find a date, but need to move on it, I'm sure Pine Hill's schedule is more open than Lake Wisconsin's.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good idea. Part of this is the planning board's done a lot of work to try to, in the housing committee also, to try to manage and control what kind of development's going to take place in the town, where, how, what it does for us. And I think they want to have an opportunity to present that and have the town make some decisions in a focused way where it's not, just part of a larger agenda. So that's, and they've been working on this plan for several years.
And Gina said they have a lot of public information education sessions planned.
Okay. And they've done some of that already, and so has Addie and her housing committee, so. Okay, great, thanks, but, I mean, your point is good too, which is that it costs money to have a special town meeting, and it inconveniences people who have to come out and go to the town meeting, but, so we shouldn't do it lightly.
But the scheduling problems, it looks like this whole thing's getting compounded into a great big huge snowball. I
Well,
mean,
it might snow, it's gonna be November, so probably will, now that you've said it.
We'll blame you.
All right. All right, consideration of a special election. What's the purview on that, David?
We were asked to put that on the agenda just to decide if you were going to call one or not. Everybody seems to be asking that. And I have told people, no, there's no discussion for having a special election that I know of for the vacant selectman seat.
But that would be up to us whether we wanted to call that and have an election, and there'd be some lead time associated with that also, right?
Right. It's, the selectmen can call one, or you can keep the seat vacant until the next election comes around, and that election would be for the remainder of the term, which I think is 3 years.
Well, the remainder of the term isn't 3 years, is it?
Less than 3 years, but he just was,
just
that
stood.
term was just elected.
So at the
That
next
seat.
election, it would be a 2-year term.
At the
Remainder
next
of the
regularly
3
scheduled.
team.
Yeah.
Next regularly
3-year
scheduled
term.
election would be a 2-year
Right, right.
term. If we called a special election, would that be a 2.5-year term or whatever it is? In other words, or is it just until the next election?
No, it would be for the term.
So it's just really a way to fill the seat before the next election.
Right. Right.
Okay. You guys have
so-
any thoughts about that?
My thought is sooner is better than later, although there's an incremental cost, but we're having trouble with quorums. So I'd like to have the seat filled.
Okay. Let's put this one on the 21st too for a full board discussion. Yes.
At the same time as the town meeting, they all fit together.
An all-day town meeting and an election, that's good. We'll talk slowly. Kitty?
Could you also add the treasurer at that point too?
No.
You can't add that to the,
Hey, I don't think that goes on a special
Tell you
election,
why.
does it?
There's no vacancy in the position as soon as they appointed me. At least that's what town council is saying. You can't have a special election because they already took care of it by appointing,
So you would have to resign and leave the seat vacant in order to have an election?
which is fine.
Don't encourage him.
At any time, but it wouldn't be effective until election day.
Right.
You can do it that way. That way there's no gap in service.
Right, right. Well, let's see what we do in terms of whether we schedule one. And I know there were a couple of library trustee positions, I think, too. Just one? One library trustee position? Okay. I thought there was a fourth position that had opened up somehow. No?
I can't remember what it is, though.
I don't know. All right, we'll find out afterwards. Somebody won't show up and we'll know. Okay, good. So, well, we've got Whitewater here, right? Are we waiting for anything? Can we start you a little early, or?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Chairman, what happened to CMND director discussion?
That was removed from the agenda at the beginning of the meeting.
But that's what I stayed for.
But we don't have a quorum on that topic, so.
Thank you.
See, Peter, I was 15 minutes late, but you were like 17 minutes late, and we'd already gotten something done.
I got that, thank you.
Yeah,
Will that be on your next meeting agenda?
I hope so. We've just got to get people to show up at the meetings. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Dan Mattis is from Whitewater. He's been
Yep.
helping us throughout the whole
Yeah,
process.
Dan
and-
has been great, and appreciate you coming in and updating us.
No problem. So, my name's Dan Mattis. I'm with Whitewater. I've been involved in the project here going on for the past month and a half or so. Is everybody aware of kind of the synopsis of the history here, or do you want me to do a quick rundown of what's happened?
Do a quick one there.
All right, so a quick rundown. So, about a couple months ago, we had some bacteria hits from the water system, some from the source, some from the distribution. It happened a couple of times, and that prompted some DEP attention. And that's when they came by to do an investigation. They typically will do that once a level 1 assessment is issued, and they found out that there was some construction going on within the wellhead protection area, zone 1 for the well. So they required a level 1 assessment, which is a requirement where you look at all the aspects of where this could be coming in, and that involves a camera inspection of the well, looking at all the backflow devices, any potential sources of contamination. So at that point, a well camera inspection was done. As the pump was being removed and the temporary pump put in the well to draw the water down so we could inspect the borehole of the well, upon removal of that pump, part of the well collapsed around 260 feet. So the well is pulled a total of 320 feet of pipe and pump out of the well, and at 260 feet, the pump could not be inserted any further than that. So the camera was sent back down and found out there was a big void space that had fallen apart inside the well. At that point, DEP got more involved, allowed us to get a drill rig in here to clean it out. And at that point, there were a lot of discussions, is it safe to put the pump back to where it was, or is there going to be another collapse which would make that permanent in the well, and we'd have to either drill a well or come up with some alternative to remove that, which would be nearly impossible. So a geophysicist was called in to basically see where the water in this well is coming in. Is it safe to put a pump above that zone that's compromised, or can we stick it below and not have to worry about a well collapse? So he basically determined that it is safe to put the well pump above this collapsed zone, determining that most of the water is coming in from above that zone. So that's what the plan is moving forward, is to put the pump back above the zone. If there is a future collapse of the well, it should not impact future pump removal. That being said, there was also some issues identified with the well. It's been worked on over the years. We noticed that it goes from 8-inch well to a 6-inch well after about 100 feet. Someone put an extension on the well at some point less than 8 inches, so it would make putting a seal into the well to seal off any zones that were identified below the casing impossible. So the plan of attack, and we have DEP approval, is to cut the casing about 7 feet down, extend it up to 8-inch to be uniform with the rest of the borehole, put a seal in below the casing to seal off any surface water that's coming in, and put a pump back in the well. And we're hoping to start that process Thursday. Is that too quick?
No, but I'm having trouble following what you said you were going to do. There's 8 inches down to a certain level and then 6 inches below that?
It's 6 inches down to about 7 feet, and then it goes to about 8 inches based on the caliper readings to about 105 feet, and then after that, it's down to 6 inches. So at some point, that well was drilled deeper. Not sure when, not sure by who, but it's clear based on the caliper readings that the well was deepened at one point. So the reason for the
casing was extended up.
How much water would?
That's why he's talking upside down.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
That's right.
There's an 8-inch section of steel, and then it goes to 6 for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
It's probably what they had on the truck at the time, honestly. But
how much?
That's the best recollection of someone that works for the
right,
town.
right, and that's
hitting it with a truck.
and that's common with stuff that was done 30, 40, could be 50 years. We don't know how old the well is, so.
So how are you proposing to fix that?
So There was an issue with the camera inspection where the casing ends and the bedrock continues down. You have about 50 feet of casing. So there's a section, it's called the drive shoe, where it joins up with the bedrock. There's a big gap in it. And the geophysicists recommend putting a seal at that point to make sure no surface water is going to get in that well. Because there's a potential for surface water to get in the well at that interface with the casing and the borehole where it terminates steel pipe and goes just straight hole through the rock. So to put that seal in, we have to make the casing uniform to the surface, and it basically goes from 6-inch to 8-inch. And we wouldn't be able to jam the seal through that pipe and get a good seal.
Right.
So that's.
So you got to extend the pipe up.
Yep.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it has to be excavated anyway to put a new brass pitless adapter on there to the building, so it's got to be excavated anyway. At that point, it would be a permanent fix.
Okay.
And it would be uniform.
Once the pump is in there, how much water would be above?
You would have approximately over 220 feet of water above the pump at 1.5 gallons per foot.
Okay.
With a
So-
recharge rate of, 7-8 gallons a minute.
So pretty drought safe.
Yeah, that's why we had the geophysicists basically determine it's an insurance policy. Is it going to be safe to do this? Should anything happen in the future, it could be lowered if you put a sleeve inside the well all the way to the bottom. But we wanted to avoid that because if it were to collapse on that sleeve, that becomes permanent as well.
Okay.
How are we doing with DEP at this point? So where do things stand?
They've approved all of this proposed work. They seem to be happy. I think they'd like to see this closed out as well.
That's one more. So they're ready to close this out once
Yes.
you do this work?
Yep. Once this
Okay.
work is done, we should be good to go.
With no fines or any kind of
No fines.
penalties or anything?
No penalties.
Good.
The only other issue is you have a round of lead and copper samples due before the end of the quarter. So I sent an email to DEP today asking if we get an extension. We may not need it, but we can't obviously pull samples from temporary tank water.
Right.
I'd like to get the well back online and have it normalized for a week or so before any sampling is done. We should have plenty of time, but I just wanted to put it on their radar so nobody gets in trouble. So.
And just because I haven't been in the middle of this since the last time you guys were in here, but what's the plan going forward as far as any work within the vicinity of the well or the generator or anything else? Do we have a plan on that, or is that still under discussion?
We haven't, Dan hasn't been working on that, but right now there's, when I talked to John Sayre-Scabona, the project manager, we were looking at an expanded generator area on the side of Town Hall where the current generator is, and the underground storage tank underneath the parking lot area closer to the lot line of the vacant lot, but on our side of the
But outside of
lot line.
the 100-foot or
The storage
setback?
tank would probably be outside the 100. The generator is going to be within the 100. And I've told DEP that as soon as we get a drawing of that proposed plan, then we can discuss that drawing. So it's one thing at a time. As soon as this is closed up, then we'll move on to that. But I don't have a drawing yet from the proposed locations, so.
Okay, and there's no alternative of using natural gas or propane at that location?
Well, the natural gas is the generator.
It is,
Yeah.
okay. So the tank is just for it's not an oil tank then?
It's
is
a
what you're
fire
saying?
suppression.
It's just the fire suppression tank? Okay, great.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's 20,000 gallons, so it's probably half the size of this room.
Yeah, okay.
So it's, and there are some places that there would just be so much ledge that you'd have to blast to put it in. So right now, we're just looking for that concept drawing to see if that passes with DEP. The problem will be, or I would see, from trenching from the trench that's already there all up along the side of Town Hall. So there would definitely be some work in that 100-foot zone. And we're just going to have to work with DEP to see if they approve that.
Okay.
From my perspective, if the generator is going to be a dual use, for the water system and the library and everything else, they're more likely to work with you. That's a much added benefit to the system. So, in terms of
And it's where the current generator is.
Right.
It's intended to be where town hall's
Yeah, no, I
generator
get
is.
that.
and if the work within the zone 1 is going to be water lines or electric lines, there's generators in zone 1s all over the place. So, if it's serving the water system, that's going to be good. That's going to be good.
Okay.
Mary's got a comment.
Mary?
Just at the LDC meeting last night, it came up, and David, you and I kind of exchanged emails, and I left a message about this, but design team is very concerned about moving the underground storage tank over this area because it would require additional plumbing design for the sprinkler system in terms of how the distance that it would have to travel to get to the building. So they actually would like to, you know, with your help, now that we're allowed to talk to DEP because the well issue has been resolved, they'd like to see if we can discuss with DEP that, you know, initial plan of having it within the zone 1, as long as there's not ledge or to potentially cause a disruption on the well. And I think I don't know, I wasn't at that DEP meeting initially, but my understanding was that as long as they felt like that could be approved, so I think we just need to kind of get on the same page so that we can get off center in terms of the design.
I haven't received any positive response from DEP about having anything in there other than trenching to get the current design out of there. So if we can get that design plan, I know they had questions about the type of tank and everything, and I don't think that those were answered, but we can move on to that now that this is closing out.
I just would love to have kind of, you know, support and responsiveness so that we can make sure that we can get off center on the design. Because if we do need to, you know, really dramatically change all of that, that's substantial.
I think there was a lot of support for it before. I don't know what the support would be now for locating that tank there.
Right. So I think we just want to assess and have that conversation about the well issue.
Yeah.
The mystery pipe, was that resolved too? The drain line or whatever it was that nobody seemed to know exactly what it was?
White PVC
connection.
pipe.
Yes.
When the excavation's done on the well, we're gonna dig that up and see what's there. If it's
Okay.
nothing there, it's coming out.
Okay.
But that would be the time to look at it. God forbid there's a valve or something there that's buried in mud. I don't know.
No, didn't we decide that it was connected to the lower drain
That's
in
what
the front?
yeah.
Oh, different pipe.
Are we talking the white pipe
He's
sticking
talking
out of
about
the
the pipe
ground?
that just sticks up right next to the well.
Oh,
No, I was
okay.
talking about your
So
pipe.
groundwater can, I know exactly what my pipe
You do,
is.
okay.
Yeah,
I've always known where it came.
Okay.
yeah.
Is there anything that needs to be done with that, Sean,
Yeah.
to complete this?
Absolutely.
So is that on your radar also, Mary, do you know?
Who's
or-
handling it?
Well, that's why we have to have this conversation to figure out how we're resolving all of this, because we've been told not to approach DEP about it. And we, you know, now that this is getting resolved, I just want to make sure that it's a priority for everybody that we can.
I think it makes sense to have some kind of a meeting where all these issues are aired and we have a town position.
We will,
Go back
but
to DEP.
DEP specifically asked, can we deal with this separately? Because they
no,
were
I get
getting too
it,
many
but I think
inquiries.
Mary's point is, let's get
Yeah.
everybody on the same page and then go back to DEP.
We will have a meeting with DEP, just like
How
we did
soon-
with the water meeting.
But how soon can we do the pre-DEP meeting that they need to keep
Well,
their
I was
project-
told that I was waiting for a drawing so that I could talk to DEP, send it to them and say, but this about changing the location from the tank.
Yeah,
back
but
to
David,
where
it sounds like
was,
there's more
that's not-
stuff on, the list of agenda items for that meeting than just the drawing of where the tank's gonna go. It sounds like there's this mystery pipe and there may be some other issues that
Right.
they also have questions about.
I think that Mike's right, there's a series of issues, including the design around the new shared generator, if that's the way things move forward, who's gonna be doing that, you know, engineering work to model it, you know, I think there's a series of things that now that hopefully the well stuff is resolved, we can, I just post haste would like to be able to.
Yeah,
have that
so can,
conversation.
I mean, I know you've got, your bandwidth is filled with the many hats you're wearing, but, do you have, I mean, can you get something like that set up
Yeah,
soon? Okay.
yeah.
There's drainage to this building that's severed right now.
I
So this
understand that.
building's in danger of flooding.
No, I
if
get
we were
that.
to get a heavy storm.
Yeah, which we
We
might.
don't know if the sump pumps are even gonna work. And we know we'll flood the well. We've already seen that, so somehow that needs to get, it hasn't been resolved. The pipes are all crushed and broken.
So that's gotta be on that
That's
list
a
too.
known issue.
Would it be
Hasn't been-
possible at the weekly construction meeting on Thursday for David, would you be able to attend that? And Sean, if you wanted to come to talk about, you know, the thoughts we've had on the generator, if that would be an ideal time with the design team and engineering?
In the crushed pipes.
The crushed pipes maybe, the problem is, and the last meeting I went to is where the generator conversation came from.
Yeah, no, I know, but.
I think it was very productive. And the tank, and those can be handled separately. Because I think GEP is gonna be very favorable of the generator move.
Well, hopefully they're favorable on both, so.
They might be. I hesitate. I'm not sure even your site contractor wants to put that tank where they want to put it, but they're definitely two completely different issues. And the drainage has got to be resolved. We're heading into a rainy season.
So I think getting off center on all of these issues in one place and then getting some resolution in the other trustees meeting on Tuesday. So if it's possible for people to attend the 2 o'clock meeting on Thursday,
Thursday, she said. Okay.
I have 1 o'clock on Wednesday is the construction meeting.
haven't they been listed Thursdays?
Some have and some haven't, I thought. So just let me know which
All right,
day.
you guys can schedule that offline.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think you were first, but if you want to defer to Nancy, that would be a very nice thing to do.
I'll defer to Nancy.
Okay, Nancy.
I just wondering, since you don't know what's underneath the ground here, the fact that a few feet further to the left, we know there was a foundation that's been filled, and therefore could have the fill removed without ledge concerns and pipe concerns and all of that. Where the house stood next door, certainly the foundation would be as big as you need for a tank. Yes, you'd have to pipe a little further, but you might save in a lot of other ways than if you're trying to dig up ground, you're gonna hit ledge.
Fortunately, the selectmen don't have to decide where to dig, at least not yet. Yes.
So, the really dumb question I have about this tank is, why is it going over there when the library's over here? And there's already a tank out there. And the fire suppression, the filling of that tank is coming from over there. Why can't we put the tank out in the front lawn next to the one we already have?
That's a very good question. We tried to do that, but initially the plan was to piggyback on that tank.
Well, I'm saying add another tank.
Well, it was the plan originally, and then there were some cost issues that came up, and there were some issues around having an above-ground generator over here. That would be,
We can put the generator over there, and we can plumb it to there. That's easy. The water source comes up the hill. We can tie another tank to this tank. And you guys seem to run a special on ledge work, so I don't really think there's a big problem with running into ledge over there, because you're gonna run into ledge. You're gonna have to pipe this thing, you're gonna have to tie the two of them together, and you're gonna have to tie it all the way around to the library. So you're gonna go through ledge, and you're gonna mess with the well again. Let's get the thing as far away from the well as we can. I think we've all had enough of that for one lifetime. Put it over there. Tie it into the other one. And you can probably find out how much ledge there was over there when they put that tank in. And as far as I know, when we put the hydrants in, there was no ledge at that particular point. And that pipe goes from those hydrants to this building. So,
well,
I'm sure.
I'll share that feedback with the design team again.
To me, if they're willing to,
We understand why that decision was made.
Makes a lot of sense when you hear it.
oh yeah, well, if the thing can be located under the parking lot over here, it can be located under the parking lot over here and cut 100 feet off the
Hell, just put it
trenching.
on the lawn. You know, you don't have to rip up the parking lot. Dirt goes up, dirt goes down, grass goes back on, it's easy.
Usually they're in now is they already trenched and almost made it there.
Yeah, but that trench shouldn't be touched because they'll probably screw up the well again, right?
We didn't screw up
Well,
the well necessarily.
Dan's still here to talk about the well,
Yeah.
and I still had some questions for him.
Great. Go for it.
And I was hoping these printed copies were better, but he probably didn't memorize them anyway. Below the 60 feet, one, there's a couple different errors in DEP's thing. I don't know if you picked up on that. I don't know if it even matters. But DEP's approving a 4-inch sleeve.
Right, so it's basically,
Already fixed.
it's a 7-inch rubber seal with a 4-inch PVC drop pipe.
Yeah, I know.
So that's what they're referring
They
to.
didn't,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
they
all.
got a 4-inch Schedule 40 PVC Jaswell seal, which isn't what we're doing, to 60 feet. I think they just transcribed something you had.
No, it's a 4-inch pipe, so basically you take the 6-inch well, make it a 4-inch pipe to accommodate the pump, and inside that annular space, bentonite chips are put inside to create a seal. So So there's a set of
Calling
rubber.
it a 4 and you're calling it a, thought you had a 7. Well, let's go back to the 60 feet, because in the flow report, was just under half a gallon per minute between 60 and 100 feet. So if we're thinking about what might be contaminating, and we know we have really suspect fractured bedrock, could it be that that .2 on a heavy rainy day when the water was dumping out of the drain pipes leaked into that fractured zone? And instead of putting the Jaswell seal down at 112 and blocking that off. In other words, we might do all this.
Still have a problem.
The water comes down the trench from the library, follows it, hits the fractured bedrock from the hammering, or from whatever,
From every
ends up still in the well.
Yes, from every geologist and well professional I've talked to, when you get down past 60, 80 feet and you've got somewhat decent bedrock above that, it usually provides enough adequate filtration of microbes and things like that into the well. The biggest suspect spot was, and we didn't see any water pouring in at that time, was the union of the casing to the bedrock. That's typically when you have a well that wasn't designed a while ago. That's usually where you see water seeping in, and that may only happen when the ground is super saturated. So when we were doing it, we couldn't see it, but we've cameraed a lot of wells over the years, and I've seen water pouring in at that zone. A lot of times if the well was 30, 40 years old, they didn't use a drive chute. A lot of times the casing just was sitting on the bedrock. So drillers said, I'll get you 10 gallons a minute, and 5 of that is surface water. But nobody knew at the time, so.
Right.
So that was kind of the recommendation between Bristol and Mark Blackie, who did the geophysical work, is basically put that zone out of commission, and that way we're not going to seal off the major water producing zones of the well. If you jam a Jaswell seal down to 100 feet, you're liable to block off, some decent production areas, and then we're back to square one with, are we going to have enough water in this well?
Do you have a price estimate on what this is all going to cost?
We have some rough numbers. We've gotten all kinds of numbers thrown around for different services. We already have pricing on the pump. The original pricing of the pump was based on going back to 320, so it's going to be less than that. Less wire, less pipe, less labor. So that price will be reduced. In terms of the Jaswell seal, we're dealing with very inexpensive materials. So, and steel casing is $18 a foot, something like that. Most of the cost is going to be labor.
I would expect around 18,000 by the time we're done.
Does that sound about right? 18,000?
18 to 20.
Yeah, I would have to look. I mean, I
It's rough cut.
didn't come prepared with those. I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
That includes the level 1 assessment that we already did, which was 9,500.
Oh, that includes that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dan, I wanted to follow up on what Sean's question, the DEP letter approving the work. It's the DEP letter dated September 7th, is approving 4 items that they've said came from your September 1st letter to them. Is that an accurate summary? This is what DEP has looked at and blessed.
Yes.
Is that an accurate summary of what we're going to be doing?
Yes. Yep. And that should complete everything over with the well area. So.
It wasn't exactly what Peter Newton recommended in terms of sizing and stuff.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the two line up, that that's what we'd asked for.
The one thing that's maybe not being that was investigating that white pipe sticking out of the ground. That's going to be a thing determined on site. If
Right.
there's something down there, somebody put it there for a reason. We don't know what it is, but if it turns out to be just a pipe stuck in the ground, maybe to monitor groundwater levels or something.
I just want to make sure what we're approving tonight is consistent with what DE approved
Yep.
in its September 7th letter.
Yes. Yeah.
Daryl.
Hi, so I don't know too much about the history of this, but if the well collapsed, was that just kind of coincidence that it happened around the time of the library project? Is it?
It could be. It could be coincidental.
Waiting to happen at any moment in time?
I'm not sure anybody has that answer, but what we do know is the rock that was pulled out from that zone is not very strong bedrock. There's a zone of highly metamorphosed bedrock that's flat and platy. It did create a big void space, but that void space is actually not a big production zone of the well. So that was cleaned out with some air charges several times to hopefully loosen up any other fragments that might be there in the future. So it might just be a big cavern in the well at this point, moving forward.
It happened when they were pulling the pump,
So yeah,
which is typically when you'll knock a rock loose.
yeah, as the pump is being pulled out, it's dangling back and forth, and that's, that would be the time when a well, if there was loose rock, it would be jostled,
Did you see you saw the report, right? Oh, I thought it got forwarded to a bunch of people. There's several zones in the well that are opened up to like 18 inches, because when it hit those, the bit walks around inside.
It's likely much larger than that, too.
Right.
The calipers can only
they ran
extend
out
out
of
to 18
measurement.
inches.
So
What
while the
we do,
pump's dangling around in 18 inches of water, it can flop around and knock a rock loose. So they almost lost the pump. That was what happened.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't see.
Because there's been a lot of official and unofficial conversation in town around the telephone meeting, sort of triggered all of this. That has not been officially tied to the library construction. Is that correct, or?
we don't know if it's, we don't know if it's coincidental or seasonal, but the camera inspection did identify potential sources of infiltration of bacteria.
And also at the source. Is that right?
Right, we're talking about the source, yeah.
So I don't know, personally, I just feel like that's an important distinction to make, that it hasn't been conclusively tied to the work that's been done that was done. I mean, it's unfortunate that it was done and working through it all, but I just want to point out that there have been previous total coliform high readings before. And
Yes.
this was another one.
Anybody else, anything?
Do you know, was the well pump all the way at the bottom before, at
Yes.
320?
Yeah, it was at 320. If that well would have collapsed, there was no way that would have been able to be extracted at that point. So it definitely happened as it was being pulled.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a matter of time. No matter if it was pulled 10 years ago or 2 months ago, it was likely that
Right.
it
I'm
would
just
have happened.
wondering if we're going to do all this and find out we don't have enough yield, because we just gave up 100 feet of.
Well, that's what the geophysicist basically said. You shouldn't have any issues setting the pump at 255, right above that zone. You're going to have several hundred feet of water above that, and then a lot of the water's will be coming from above where that pump is. And should the well have collapsed again or bridged as it happened, there's still going to be enough pore space in between, usually, for water to pass through that. So if boulders were to fall in place, you'd still get some pass through.
Yeah.
You ready for a motion?
Well, Daryl's got a question.
Just one other thing, so, again, I don't know all the details about this, but if I was going to be approaching DEP about a generator within Zone 1 for a client of mine, I would certainly look at what kind of release prevention and detection provisions would be associated with that generator and that level of security, not just for DEP, but for the drinkers of that well water. So, and if you're doing a generator, it's easier to get double wall tanks and spatial monitoring and overflow.
I think what DEP is looking for is it going to impact the quality of the water for that particular source, and if it is, what measures are in place to mitigate that. I guess that's what they're looking for.
But there's no fuel tank from what we were told, though, right? So there's no.
Yeah, we're staying with natural gas.
It's a natural gas generator.
What they're not going to approve would be diesel. So.
Yeah, right. But that's what Daryl was concerned with the interstitial monitoring and everything.
Yeah.
The original plan for the library was natural gas, but also with that extra protection built in to make sure that there had been some exposure from hydraulics.
Okay.
Because there's plenty of ways to do it. It's not dry, it's not dry except for diesel, so.
Oh, yeah, but but they're built to prevent that stuff from escaping. That's your point.
Yeah,
Okay.
or you should make sure that, yeah.
Hopefully, we're buying a new one. Next. Anything? No?
There's no need, you don't have to vote on anything.
There's nothing really to vote on, right? I mean, DEP told,
Unless you were going to change
Just
the
a side
plans.
comment, if you were to have a generator that powered the water system, could this building be considered an emergency shelter at that point?
No,
No? Okay.
it can't be if it's natural gas without a backup propane.
Gotcha.
okay,
You don't need to vote on anything.
nothing to vote on? Okay, so we're done with that?
Yep.
All right, we got George coming in at
Thank you.
8:15. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks
Thanks,
for
Dan.
that.
Quick question, about excavation, we had talked about somebody in the town doing excavation.
Did you talk to John McAvoy yet?
Yeah, I mean, he talked about it, we're gonna meet and decide if that's something they wanted to do, or, because I can mark out dig safe. We can do an emergency dig safe on Thursday. I can call him tomorrow.
Yeah, call me or John tomorrow.
I mean,
John should handle that.
We know,
Diane.
John should definitely handle that.
He
Yeah.
was. he
You're just going down 7 feet to get to
that's
the.
it, yeah, just clear out an area where they can put a new
He
adapter
just
on it.
wanted some assurance from David where it was the zone 1 area, so John
Yeah.
was just kind of covering his bases.
I just need
That's
to-
all John was doing.
Yeah,
Let
DEP
John know.
approved this work, so it is approved
Right.
in the zone 1, so
Yeah.
Right.
So he's hesitant
rightfully
in
so.
a good way.
Okay, good deal. All right, so we've got, is George Fisk here right now?
No, he wasn't. He was in another meeting. He couldn't get here till 8:15.
All right, so we should do I think we should go, we're gonna go
Put
to,
his daughter on the spot.
oh, yeah, we could.
She's here to represent him? No?
Yeah, come on,
I do
you'll say
need
it
to,
much better than your dad anyway. Come on.
I do need to take care of something under the town administrator report.
Do you have a town administrator report for us, David?
Well, the one issue is, I need, couple of weeks ago, we had appointed a temporary assistant collector, and now I need a temporary assistant treasurer. So I was looking to appoint Nancy as temporary assistant treasurer. So that's the only thing I had on the report was please appoint Nancy as a temporary assistant treasurer for the purpose of receiving turnovers
Okay.
from other departments.
So Nancy
cash
has requested that we combine the collector position with the temporary assistant treasurer position?
I
Is
think
that
that's what
she's asking?
temporarily, yes.
Okay.
I told her it can't be
Temporary can go on
rescinded.
for a while. Okay, do we have a motion for this, or?
Does she have a pulse? Is she willing to do it?
I think she said she would do it for a
Good.
while, yeah.
I move to appoint Nancy Hess as the temporary, do we need a term on this?
As temporary assistant treasurer.
And do we need a term on the assistant
Um,
treasurer?
we could just do December 31st.
A two-year term, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Just make it December 31st.
December 31st?
Yeah, and that covers.
Ready for a
Good
second?
with that? Yeah, sure.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
That's ample time.
And Nancy doesn't get to vote, right?
No.
Okay,
Nancy doesn't get to
appointed,
vote.
thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
What's next?
You already said a meeting,
Any
approval of the
selectmen
minutes?
reports?
I've got a brief one.
Okay,
The, Sean can confirm this, the Brewfest this year, last Friday, was unbelievable. Every year it seems to be more and more well-attended. There was a lot of folks, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully we raised a lot of money for the, for this, what's the group? It's not the Benevolent Association. Who is it that's?
The Business Association.
It's the business, yeah.
definitely not benevolent, it's business.
It was really, it was terrific and a lot of fun.
But they're being very benevolent by donating all this money
They certainly are.
and awarding the grant.
I cannot confirm nor deny whether there was a lot of people there or
Oh,
not.
yeah?
It was a good time.
Okay, any other selectmen reports or selectmen items? No? Okay. I was pleased to see Coolidge Street was getting a coat of pavement the other night when I accidentally drove down there while the road was half closed off. But it was great, traffic flow, they had it really well
Okay.
well managed.
They really didn't make too much noise.
Did they not? That's good.
They really
You
didn't.
you slept right through it?
No, the dog and I were out chasing them around, but they,
Yeah.
from what For what they did and how well they did it, they really didn't make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They did it 1 Butler Street, or 7. I'm not sure what they were doing there.
They, I
A
mean.
whole lot of
they
street
hauled all
sweeping
that
going on
stuff
next to my
down,
house at midnight.
And they went up the road and back the road and back up again and did another pass. And the
great.
best part was, they didn't end up with the cold joint in front of my house like they had the last 2 times. Way down next to the swamp, which is fun.
Excellent. Well, anyway, it's good that there was some progress on that.
Yeah.
That's,
So that'll be Coolidge, Kendall, and Speen,
yeah.
that whole area.
Okay, anything else?
I had 2 people at the Brewfest come up to me and thank the town for the reconstruction on Woodland, that they were very pleased with the redesign.
Okay, that's very good.
There's a
Glad
set
it's
of
working
minutes
out.
to approve.
The school buses have made that turn?
I haven't read they haven't.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's good. So all those predictions that I was getting at the beginning of the summer,
Interesting journey.
that's a tight turn.
Yeah.
All right. David, our session with Barbara is going to be by telephone,
Yes.
and that's going to take more than 10 minutes, so should we just,
She
What's that?
said it would take about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
well, we could do that now and then come back for George when he
Sure.
gets here.
Can we do my minutes? You did the notes, you did the notes of those minutes last week.
Right.
Those are the real minutes,
Minutes?
right. July
Oh, they were in the, they were in the last package.
13th. Those were the notes in the last packet.
Well, do we have the new minutes? I'm not sure they're in this
You
package.
tell me I didn't put them in
I
there.
don't think they're in here.
Are you kidding me?
The minutes from the 13th aren't in this package.
That's all right. All right, so we
I'll
can't do
bring it
those.
to
So
the next
so can we do our,
Can't work this out.
can we go into executive session? Is that going to be? And then we'll come back for George at,
George is
oh,
here.
no, he's here. See, I knew if I stalled long
Saved
enough, he'd
us.
show up. Excellent. This is good.
Please.
Thanks, George.
We were trying to get Abby to sub for you, but
Yeah,
she
we
wouldn't do
almost-
it.
We almost had it talked into it.
Hello. Well, thank you very much. I am here on behalf of the Sherborn Rural Land Foundation, and as you may recall, you may not, but I came before you some number of months ago. I think it was near the end of last calendar year, and I was describing to you a transaction that we had been planning on actually for some number of years, but it looked like it was coming to fruition, and that is that we own a tract of land approximately 50 acres in size, which we acquired back in the mid-1980s from the Hildreth family. It was a larger tract at that time and included a farmhouse and barn. We sold a portion of that property to the Delaney family, and they've been there since and have been enjoying and improving the property they acquired from us. In more recent years, we entered into a lease agreement with the Hodson Walker family, otherwise known as Silverwood Farm, and they have been using our land for agricultural purposes, but would like to make some significant improvements in it and to it, and it really came down to making more sense for them and for us if we simply sold them the property. Now, we had an agreement with the Hildreth family when we acquired it that it was not to become subdivided or used for residential purposes. They wanted to see it continue as farmland, and we agreed to that at acquisition. This transaction calls for our selling the land, but with an APR, or agricultural preservation restriction, being put in place. And that would protect the land in perpetuity, at least that is the theory, just as conservation restrictions do. But it would be used for agricultural purposes. And some of the benefits that accrue are certainly significantly. We will receive some funds from that, which will allow us to conduct other transactions or use it for other purposes that are in keeping with the foundation's work. But we wanted to be sure that the public, which has historically had access to the property, would continue to have so. that situation would continue. And I did present you with an easement plan last year. The easement plan has not changed significantly, but has been expanded to allow for improved or additional trail access to town property, and most notably to what many people refer to as the Bailey Trail, which comes in off of conservation land which abuts this property. It also allows for an easement on for trail that connects over to Dopping Brook Road, and obviously and also over to Pleasant Street. So what have we been able to do? We've been able to protect a piece of property, see it put back into agriculture, we think permanently. We have provided public access. We will receive some funds, and also the property does go back on the tax roll, albeit at a lesser amount than it would be without the restriction. But there will be some revenue generated for the town. So what we need from the town is we need the selectmen to essentially endorse this. The reason it's taken so long since you've seen me is that there's been a lot of going back and forth over the language of the APR, not only with the Hudson Walkers and us, but also with the state. And we feel we've finally come up with language that satisfies those parties. We also took into account a couple of comments that we received from you back when I saw you before. So I'm here to try to answer questions you may have about it, looking for endorsement of it, and it would require your signature. I assume signature, Mike, of you as chair of the board. And also I think I sent to you electronically the APR as well as the easement plan. But I do have the easement plan here if you want to see it.
They're both in the packet.
All right.
Who drafted the APR? Was it Karen, or was it the grantor's lawyers?
Initially, Karen.
So George.
We're also doing, there is an APR that we might use going forward. Since we started this, the state developed an expedited APR that could be used in a situation where there was no seeking of state funds, because ordinarily with an APR there are funds that are requested, and this is one of those rare instances where we're not looking to the state for any funding.
So George, and this is similar to a discussion we had before, but I don't think it's the exact language, and I don't recall if we had I think we had the discussion in the context of the deed rather than the APR, right?
Yes, and you had asked, my recollection is that you had asked that there would be reference in the deed to the APR. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. But so I'm looking at the APR though, and so under B15 on privacy, which was the point we talked about before, except within the trail easement, the grantor can prohibit or regulate access to use of the premises by the public, including the right to prohibit hunting, fishing, trapping, and the right to exclude the public. Fine. Notwithstanding the foregoing, grantee, that's you, the rural land, shall have the sole authority to allow public access within the trail easement, subject to the provisions of said deed and this APR. So the rural land has the right to allow public access on those trails. That's what this says. But then when you get down to section 4, access, the first paragraph says this agricultural preservation restriction does not grant to the grantee, to the public, or to any other person or entity any right to enter upon the premises except as follows. And it says that you have the right to enter for purposes of inspecting or enforcing. And it doesn't say you have the right to let people use the trails. So it's internally inconsistent on that point, the way I'm reading it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't followed the sections, but I can tell you one of the things that's been complicated is that at the outset, there's a whole long list of things you can't do.
Right.
And you go through that long list and you kind of wonder, well, why can't you do these? Well, that's because later in the agreement, there are exceptions that are provided for. Now, maybe you're looking at something that's outside of that?
It's at the top of page 7, under Roman numeral 4. At a minimum, it should say, other than as provided in this
Right,
agreement.
which was a similar change to what we made in the deed, I think. Right, the Part A says all the things that the Hudson Walkers or their successors can't do. And Part B says all the things that they're allowed to do. And then the one I was just mentioning to you is B15, and one of the things they're allowed to do is prohibit access except within the trail easement. So you've carved out rural land as the party that's allowed to have public access or allowed to grant public access within the trail easements. But then at the end, there's this broad paragraph which just says, does not grant to the grantee, the public, or any other person any right to enter on the premises. So I'm concerned about that undercutting or at least creating confusion on that. And I'm trying to see if premises might be defined in some funny way, but I don't see that. You see where premises is defined? I don't even know if it is defined, actually. Yeah, it's not defined, it just says a parcel of land, it doesn't, but it uses the term premises, and I assume it's just referring to the 50 acres, but that 50 acres would be inclusive of the trails. So that's, I mean, I think, I don't want to send you back to everybody, but I do think that's an issue with this.
I want to be sure I understand.
You are, sure, Judge.
Yeah, I don't see a definition of premises.
So
There's
look under 4, George, access, page
Yep,
6.
yep.
On top of page 7, it says, this agricultural preservation restriction does not grant to the grantee, to the public, or any other person any right to enter upon the premises except as follows. And the as follows is that rural land or its agents have the right to enter the premises upon notice at reasonable times for inspecting purposes, and that rural land, after notice of a violation and failure of the grantor to cure, has the right to enter in order to take actions to abate the violation. Those are the only two things that are in here.
Yeah.
And what it should say, it should say except as follows, for purposes of exercising its rights with respect to the trail easement or something along
So
those
you're
lines.
saying it conflicts with, there's another area that says you can do it, but here it says you
Yeah,
can't.
it conflicts with it, and that's the most important part from the town standpoint, is the public access to the trails and the fact that rural land can allow that. And here it's seeming to take away what it allows in the other piece of it. So I think it's better for us if it were very clear.
All right.
Rick, you were appointed for life to the Board of Appeals earlier, if you were wondering.
Well, so long as you have a pulse.
And only based on your major
Anyway, so George, that was,
qualifications.
I mean, I have no doubt we'd be willing to sign this. It's just, I think that should be addressed.
Right. Anything else?
I don't see anything else, I'm sorry, I don't see anything. Do you have any issues, Chuck?
No.
Well, how about the easement plan? Okay?
I don't really understand. Pretty hard to read.
This is the same plan, though, isn't it? This is the same plan that was with the deed? It's December 2.
It could be the same. I couldn't remember if you had seen an earlier iteration. This one is dated back in December, so this could be the identical plan.
Yeah, either that or you sent it to me afterwards, but it looks pretty similar.
Yep. Well, all right, let me see what I can do.
The easement covers all the existing footpaths back there, correct?
Well, it covers this.
Well, is this another one over?
It covers most. There is a footpath that leads, if you look at the easterly side, you might see a dotted path
Yeah.
that goes northerly
Yep.
back to Hudson Walker,
That's this
Yep.
one.
and that's not included.
That's their escape back to their
That's-
property, but it's not for the
That's right.
public.
It's not for public access. It doesn't lead to public property.
Yep.
And that's probably the one most utilized.
Well, no, I think
No,
that just leads
it-
to the road.
No, you're thinking
'Cause
of
they
this
live
one.
across the street.
Aren't you thinking of this one? Up in the right corner here, Chuck?
Oh, yeah, that is the one I'm thinking of. Yep, thank you. Yep.
The other changes that I may have mentioned before, but is that there are existing easements through some of the Delaney property now, and those are changing. We're deleting some from easements that we put in a number of years ago, but adding in other areas. And the reason for that is just because it makes more sense. It follows the trails, where the trails are going to go. So there were certain areas where we certainly didn't need to cross the Delaney property, but there are others where we necessarily wanted to. And the Delaneys have been accepting of those changes.
Yeah, because there are 3 very clear footpaths leading into that area, so,
But those aren't shown on here.
yeah, right, that's up in here.
Yeah, no, this looks fine. It all looks fine. It's just that one.
All right, well, I'm going to try to get back to you quickly,
Okay.
because we really want to get this
If you want me to
done.
talk to anybody, let me know, and I'll.
I may have you chat with Karen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is there a way to approve this and not make him come back and do it?
Well, the only thing is, once we approve it, then it goes to the state.
No,
and
no,
they
no,
approve it.
you-
Conservation-
I mean pending.
Concom approves it.
And you
No,
can-
he's got to make the rounds
I
anyway.
think you want to see I want to see the language.
he's gonna
and
make the rounds of all the boards,
It's not going to really speed things up if I haven't, it's a nice gesture, but I think we need to go through the motions, make
We're
sure
meeting
the
next
language
Thursday
is.
anyway. We could take care of this then.
What's that?
We're meeting next Thursday. I mean, I don't know if you can turn it around that quickly. Does the state have to approve any change here?
We'll find out.
Okay.
My inclination is to make the changes that satisfies you and satisfies
Okay.
the Hudson Walkers.
Yep.
And then do the best we can.
Did they have any further change or no? They were happy with this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to give Karen a call if that'll speed things along.
If we can do that, it'd be
All
wonderful.
right, I'll do that. I'll give her a call.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
and
George. Sorry.
Try to get it done next time you meet. It's a week from Thursday?
A week from Thursday, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Novak, did you just show up for the entertainment value of our meeting, or did you have something to add? Because we're about to go into executive session, and I don't want to cut you off if you came here to tell us something important.
I was invited to the executive session.
Perfect. I wanted to make sure that's all it was. Okay.
For life, we're till 2020, whichever comes first.
Yes.
Good Lord willing.
Yes. Okay. This is a motion to enter into executive session under Chapter 38, Section 21-3 to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town and the chair so declares with respect to the following matters: Murchison versus ZBA, the Town of Sherborn et al. Versus Gray Road LLC et al., the Gray Road LLC versus Sherborn ZBA, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Sherborn ZBA, and the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Conservation Commission. The board will not return to open session, I should say, and I do declare it would have a detrimental effect. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Yan. We will now have a roll call vote. Mr. Durance is absent. Mr. Yan.
Aye.
Mr. Colleen.
Yes.
And Mr. Jaimo. Aye, by a vote of 3-0. The open session is now closed. We will not be returning to open session. We are now in executive session.